And now we're going back to our top story, which is all about India strengthening ties in an unprecedented manner with Malaysia in the wake of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's two-day visit to Kuala Lumpur, where he's met his counterpart Anwar Ibrahim, and then there's been an extensive list of 16 outcomes to talk about it. We're joined by Rajiv Kumar Bhatia, former senior diplomat with many responsibilities that India has conferred upon him in the past as envoy to different nations, as widely, geographically widely spread from Myanmar to South Africa as well. Welcome, Ambassador. What do you make of the way India and Malaysia have this time around expanded or broadened ties further to areas which were previously unexplored, relatively speaking?
I think, the stated purpose of this visit was very clear. This was to deepen and expand the relationship, because for India, Malaysia is an important ASEAN country, and for Malaysia, India's importance has been growing up by the day. So fundamentally, both sides followed a very comprehensive and holistic approach. The idea was to look at 3 or 4 key pillars of the relationship. Firstly, the trade and economic relationship, and there are a number of very concrete steps that have been taken, and we can discuss them later. Secondly, there was a big focus on security and defense cooperation. Already much work has been done beforehand at the level of the defense minister and senior officials. So now, as Prime Minister himself revealed, the focus is going to be on intelligence sharing, on maritime security, and on cyber security. And third, very importantly, was this whole question of connecting with the diaspora in Malaysia, which is one of the biggest diasporic communities as far as India is concerned, a community which has a deep relationship with India over many decades, if centuries also. So in that sense, if we look at the political, economic, defense and diasporic aspects of the relationship, you're using the word that this was an unprecedented attempt to take the relationship forward. Makes a lot of sense. My final comment is that when last time Prime Minister Modi made a full-scale visit to Malaysia back in 2014 or 15, at that time an enhanced strategic partnership was started. And last year, in 2024, when Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim came to India, that was elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership. And today, we were seeing how both leaders were in sync in order to ensure that we start moving concretely towards the goal of comprehensive strategic partnership.
Okay. Now, one of the items in the list of 16 outcomes is an exchange on notes on cooperation in the field of semiconductors. Now, how significant is this, also keeping in mind the joint statement issued by India and Malaysia after the meeting?
I think it is of considerable importance for the simple reason that, first of all, Malaysia for decades has been a leader in the field of semiconductors. They have achieved a great deal of success there. And now in the current situation when, this is the age of AI, this is the age of quantum computing, this is the time when in every possible field, new technologies are being used, whether it is in energy or in space or in economic management or the fintech. So I think it is being said very clearly that there is a very significant degree of complementarity between India and Malaysia when it comes to this particular domain. So I think not merely the two governments are encouraging and motivating greater cooperation, but I think at the level of the corporate players as well, there is a deep, strong desire to now turn this program into concrete achievement. So I think we can be quite clear that in the years to come, we will see some real progress in this field.
Certainly. I mean, the businesses have to come together in that regard as well, both in India as well as in Malaysia. But Malaysia already the sixth largest exporter of semiconductors in the world. So they certainly have capabilities in terms of both manufacturing ability and technology, which can be of use where India's semiconductor mission is concerned already in the 2.0 phase. Now, there's a similar exchange of notes on cooperation in security as well. How do you assess the security cooperation between India and Malaysia so far, and the kind of scope that it has to ensure security for the larger region of the Indo-Pacific as well?
Well, there are several layers to that. I think if we include the broader chapter of security and defense, we can then desegregate by pointing out, first of all, there is a great deal of agreement with regard to countering terrorism. And there, as our Prime Minister said, no compromise and no double standards. So fundamentally there, Malaysia is on the same page as India. Then going beyond that, I think we can also say that on the national security level, there is a great deal of convergence, and there is a very standard now mechanism whereby the national security establishments of the two countries are keeping themselves into constant contact. Beyond that, if we look at defense, I think, as I mentioned right in the beginning, the joint mechanism has been working very nicely. There has been a whole quantum of cooperation in terms of periodic naval exercises, in terms of training exchanges, in terms of strategic dialogue, in terms of the visits of the defense ministers. So all possible mechanisms are being used. And on top of that, I saw in the joint statement, which is a very substantial document, there was a mention of maritime security, especially in the Southeast Asian region. And there was a reiteration for the support by both countries for the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, which is a code word for basically saying that we want an open and free Indo-Pacific. So in terms of strategic approach, security and defense, Malaysia and India seem to be coming closer to each other and using and leveraging their convergence.
Right. And if you talk about efforts to expand trade further, considering the kind of environment that we are in, where protectionism is also being sort of championed by the United States of America, although India has just struck a framework agreement which is holding a lot of promise now where that is concerned. But still, in terms of trade, although there was no lofty target setting of around $19 billion of trade, taking it to different levels, doubling it in 5 years or something like that. Do you feel that enough has been done to ensure that this can also be expanded fairly dramatically in the coming years?
I appreciate your remark. I think the attempt by both governments is to go beyond the routine kind of response here. But still, a number of steps have been taken as far as I can see. I think, first of all, we have to note that this is the first visit by Prime Minister after the two recent major trade agreements. One is the FTA, Free Trade Agreement with European Union, and the other is the initial agreement, the bilateral trade agreement with the US. So with these two in the pocket, and with a string of other FTAs which India has signed in the recent 2 years or so, India is now emerging on the global scene, on the global market in a very different light. It's very clear that India is one country which is not for protectionism, and therefore, obviously, ASEAN has to, and Malaysia in particular, has to pay greater attention. With regard to Malaysia on trade, there are two agreements, one bilaterally with Malaysia and the other multilaterally with ASEAN. I think our side seems to have pushed hard for review of both the agreements so that they can be now brought into the contemporary scene, applicable to the modern reality. So that is very good. But most importantly, there was a meeting of the CEOs Forum they have presented a joint report to the two leaders. And that report, I understand, contains specific measures whereby, trade and investment cooperation could be further expanded. And that is where they may have set in certain specific measures, timelines, and the rest of it. So we can be hopeful that even though the governments have not put, notional targets and goals, certainly they are pushing hard the dossier of greater economic cooperation.
And a very edifying bridge is the people-to-people connect between India and Malaysia, not just in terms of diaspora, but also, say, for example, tourism, where now it's being, even cross-border payments are being eased through different measures. And one of the list of outcomes is pertaining to that as well, where the UPI, India's UPI can also come into play.
Yes, I think I was yesterday watching full time, day one of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Malaysia. And the day one was completely, fully devoted to this direct, very special kind of connectivity that the Prime Minister and his delegation had with a large chunk of the Indian diaspora. We all read and heard about this unprecedented music and dance performance, which involved 800 artists, which is quite a record in the world. And his meetings and his address and the response that they gave, and on top of that, the presence of the Malaysian Prime Minister himself at this special community event. But more importantly, even today, I think there were a number of other activities and items in the program which underlined the diaspora connection. And you were absolutely right. Both governments are doing their best to facilitate greater movement, tourism, and for education and other purposes of people between the two countries. So I think Malaysia, which is already one of the top destinations for tourism by Indians, probably would become even more so. And finally, if I may just add, this is going to be the visit Malaysia year 2026. And Prime Minister underlined that he has come right in the beginning of the year to Malaysia, and therefore clearly the signal to Indian citizens is very much to look at Malaysia as a possible destination in course of the year and beyond.
And a new consulate has also been announced in Malaysia, indeed, where India is concerned. And last of all, if I could just ask you, in terms of the region itself and India's Act East policy, ensuring that sea lanes are free for movement of everyone, do you feel that India and Malaysia are the perfect partners to ensure that those sort of issues also remain on balance? Because they have no outstanding dispute as such. There might have been differences at times, but there is no dispute, unlike what we have in that region with a big neighboring partner as well.
I think if we are bringing the political, diplomatic, and strategic facets, we have to very clearly remember that Malaysia is linked to India through various fora. So first of all, ASEAN, and for ASEAN, India's Act East policy is very relevant and very important. It has seen significant progress in the past 2 or 3 decades. On top of that, a new thing that has happened is that Malaysia has now joined BRICS as a partner country. And this obviously happened with the full support that India extended to Malaysia's request. Malaysia would even want to elevate its status from partner to a full member. And that obviously will happen later, because right now BRICS is not going for another expansion. But I think there is a specific reference in the joint statement that India and Malaysia will work together to promote cooperation within the BRICS forum. So that is very, very significant. And on top of that, I think India has a very clear vision of the Indo-Pacific. India has a clear strategy for the Indo-Pacific, and Malaysia certainly occupies a very pivotal role in our approach.
All right, well, let's hope that this partnership strengthens further and it comes to fruition, whatever has been sort of conceived as far as expanding this partnership is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it, Ambassador
Thank you.
Bhatia. Thank you.